Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, okay, we're live now, but in
perfect.
typical fashion, because the Frey is usually doing this, we don't have the intro queued up.
Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Game of Nodes, the independent validator podcast, or the podcaster by independent validators, or something around there.
Whatever.
That's the phrase thing, and he's typically high fashionably late. Welcome, the Frey. We've just been waiting for you for fucking 10 minutes.
Just in time hosting.
It's I heard there was this Game of Nodes podcast thing happening. So
yeah.
Did you get the tweet? Is that what it was?
Yeah. I was like, I should go check that out, and then I remembered that I was on it.
Oh shit!
So you can see Stress Beard in full effect now. We're in our final form.
Yeah.
It's coming on.
This is a big beard for me. I've got our sponsor for this evening is Coca-Cola.
Is it
sponsoring the podcast? They're launching an app chain Q1 2023. Coke coin, no relation to cocaine, of course. That's a historical artifact.
It is.
Yeah, I'm bullish on it. It's got sugar, carbonated water, color, caramel E150D, acid, natural flavorings, and caffeine. All of those will be launched as NFTs on their new blockchain. So 1 of 1 NFTs for each of the ingredients. There's going to be they're going to actually release the secret Coke recipe as an NFT. That's what they're going to do on their new chain in the cosmos.
This is a whole new way of getting demonetized. Now we're just going to get sued our ass off. It's one of those, like, when you're young and you're like, I can't believe people sell out by taking money from so-and-so, and like all of the bad people you can take money from. In my old age, I'm like, here's my address.
I would still not take money from Coca-Cola, but I have also drunk this stuff for so long. I'm like, I don't know. You like maybe your own knowledge of your own hypocrisy increases over time, right?
Yeah.
I'd be okay with Coca-Cola. I won't draw a line there too hard, but Nestle, that's where I would draw the line. Like, I'm not putting up with any of that. I'm not doing any sort of like coconut products.
Yeah, okay. Well, weren't Nestle like union busting and like, disappearing people in certain regions or something crazy like that? Like, it was
disappearing people?
No, wait, no, I'm thinking of Glencore, aren't I? No, ignore me.
You're thinking of the government, man.
Well, dig down in a lot of supply chains, and eventually you find indigenous populations via nearby a valuable natural resource getting disappeared by a conglomerate. Anyway,
which is where the Banana Republic term comes from, kind of, sort of, a little bit.
Well, a little bit, yeah. So it takes only a couple of minutes from me showing up to us going into the Naomi Klein book group. I'm like, who was it that recommended Debt by Graeber? It was somebody on this podcast. I'm about 20 pages from the end. It's been a thrilling read.
It's a long book.
Ooh, which one is that?
It's a spicy boy. 5,000.
First 5,000.
Debt for first 5,000. What did you think?
I think it is a very, very provocative read in all the good ways. I've been, as I got towards the end, I've started looking up critiques of it, because I'm kind of interested to see like how people sort of take it apart and what they don't like about it. It's interesting. It's really, really interesting. I think there's a lot of food for thought in there that, I don't know. All I can say is it's made. I would say it's probably made me think more than any kind of pseudo pop academic book that I've read in the last maybe 3-4. Actually, it's not fair, because I read
I read Mackenzie Walk only last year, and that was very, very provocative as well. But it's on the Mackenzie Walk tier, I think, of like just fucking great, really, really great, really provocative, really, really interesting.
So why don't I reread it over the break, and then we can talk about it in depth
It's sitting on my nightstand too.
over a whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do the. We can finally devolve into the evolve into the Game of Nodes book group that we've threatened to. We still haven't done the Game of Nodes movie nights.
I know
We
we're running out of Australian classics.
what was that one that you sent round in the group chat? Now is it Fair Game?
Yeah, fair game.
Fair
I haven't watched
game.
that
Yeah.
yet.
We watched the trailer. I know.
I mean, it looked like a good couple of pints of Guinness.
I think I watched it.
Did you?
You did.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember. I think I watched it. At one point, all of those Australian movies just became the same yellow hue blur.
That's what Usurper was saying the other
The
day.
yellow blur of Australian movies. I understand.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, it's another yellow blur for an hour.
Isn't that just called like going to work as well? Like, just like
No, man.
Without the yellow.
It's been raining nonstop for
Some
2
yellow.
years. It's beautiful
there's some
outside.
yellow over there. Some yellow
I mean,
over there.
It's fucking yellow in your room, man. It's like
It is
your-
yellow in your room.
Your
Yeah,
half
well, it's-
lighting is yellow as fuck.
Yeah, well, I don't like white lights because it means if you work late, it's really hard to then get to sleep afterwards. So because I work up here, all of the lights are kind of a sort of orangey hue,
Uh-huh.
but it means that when there's this time of year, obviously, where it's been dark for like 6 hours. So it just means that it's insanely yellow in here. I'm yellow. Everything's yellow. I don't know what to tell you.
It's not normally that yellow though. So what changed?
I think normally I don't have the main light on. I just have my architect's lamp on next to my head, but I've got the main lights in here. Everything in my house is fucked at the moment. So I have this is just the concession to, if you are the last person staying with us on New Year's, you get that sofa bed where there's no blinds in this room. It's just my desk and that sofa bed, right?
And that thing.
So whoever gets here last and has last shotgun on a place to sleep ends up sleeping in there and then getting woken up like at the crack of dawn. But that's the only, apart from the chair I'm in, it's basically the only place in the house you can currently sit down and there isn't like a circular saw on it or a fucking pile of offcuts or some bullshit to do with building work. And so I cleared it so that there was a place that we could actually eat food. I don't know why it's taken me like 2 weeks to think of that solution, but I was suddenly like, I was just moving stuff around for the podcast and I was like, fuck, I should have done this literally a week ago.
Fuck, there's a couch underneath all this shit.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. It was piled up with like all kinds of shit. And I was like,
Damn,
I can just,
Yeah, man, there's a house in this house.
What the
yeah,
fuck?
I can just pile all that shit up by
We got,
my
like,
feet.
We got like beds and
right
desks
to
and
here,
shit in
and
there.
then
Yeah.
I could actually have a place to sit. So yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Soy2 Studio. Why am I so yellow? That would be very, very racist if I was. I'm. You can tell I'm tired because I nearly made a joke about.
You
and then
almost
just
made a
actually
racial
said that.
slur.
Well, yeah, nearly.
yeah.
So,
I read a book called it's a very good book called The Good Immigrant. It's about about kind of the experience of second generation lived racism in the United Kingdom primarily, and I refer to myself as brown, and I gather it is something that a lot of brown folk do, which people who haven't heard that before can find jarring. But what I learned from that book is that there are people of East Asian descent. I can't say it, I guess, because I'm not from that diaspora group. But if I say I'm a brown person, I gather there is an equivalent kind of tongue-in-cheek thing that second generation people say as well. So anyway,
I mean, unless you've got the accent, like you can't really claim it. So,
What accent?
British accent. What?
like
I have got a British accent. What are you talking about now?
Nothing. So anyway,
I'm really confused. Anyway,
Bees Irish says, "Is usurper part of Rhino Steak?"
Yeah. That's the. I'm not just shilling that shit.
Bees Irish also says, "What is the show about today?"
Fuck
That's a
if
good
we
fucking
know.
question.
Yeah.
drama, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about
It's always
love.
about drama.
And I've just been accused of having diagnosed with having jaundice. So thank you.
I was gonna say jaundice too, but I was like,
Are your eyes
how
yellow?
do you get jaundice? Is jaundice malnutrition?
No, it's
no,
like
it's
liver failure.
Yeah, it's liver.
Liver failure.
Yeah.
All right.
Basically,
It
can't
won't be
clean the
that. Then.
toxins.
I'm pretty healthy.
It can't clean all the when your liver fails to clean all the brick dust out of your blood.
Do you know what? This is gross, but I sneezed earlier and there was just
Was there stuff?
There was just sawdust, like really long, because you know when you cut like hardwood, like oak,
Yeah.
you get like these really
Very fine.
long filings. They're really
Mhm.
long, but they're like quite spirally. So they were just like all of that. I was like, oh my god, I'm dying.
Oh,
And
shit.
then I was like, oh no, this is not like tissue. This is wood. It's fine.
It's coming out. It's fine.
Yeah, I had
Sure, most of it's out.
Whatever. Yeah, a lot
It's
of it's
fine.
out.
It's not like
It's
you're a
fine.
coal miner or something. Like you're not like
Exactly.
It's only one day of it.
It's not
Yeah,
like a
no.
miner in Australia.
No.
My least
Hey.
favorite is scraping the popcorn off of ceilings. Getting rid of that is just the absolute worst. It gets in your nose. It gets everywhere in the house. It
You have
just
to like
takes
spray that
everywhere.
shit down, right? You spray it down and get it all wet, and then I've
Yeah.
never done that.
But you
Spray
always
the-
miss some. Inevitably, you're going to
get the
miss
what?
some. I guess in like the 60s. I don't know if it's everywhere else.
Still
but in the
happens.
60s or 70s. That's true. Popcorn ceiling is still used, but it's very popular in like the 70s where they would just like spray. I don't know if it's a foam, it's like caulking or what, but it looks
Cheez-Its.
like popcorn up on the ceiling. It's called popcorn ceiling. And to remove it, you basically spray the ceiling with water, you get it wet, and then you just gravel it down. Basically, it's awful.
So
I've
instead of
not
like
heard of
making
that
a ceiling, it's like you could look sideways and see that it's not 100% level, or it has like little dips or whatever. They put like a small texture on it. It's not like thick, like it's real thin. Like you just put a small texture on it. So when you put a small texture on anything, even the walls or the ceilings, like everything looks good because you can't really see, you can't see like the issue. So, and then now it used to be in style, and then everybody, like it was everywhere, like especially apartments and like small homes and things like that. And then now everybody wants to get rid of that shit, so they start scraping it off.
Here we had a much more painful thing, which I'm sure you also have. And I realize I've just made this about home improvement. I'm just really sorry to
We're all
to
over the place.
listeners. But they got wallpaper with wood chips in it, and you had to basically apply it to the wall or ceiling, because why not? You can fuck your ceiling up too while you're at it. With like extra strong wallpaper paste. And yeah, like 60s, 70s, holy fuck. Like if your place had warm bodies in it in that period of time, there is a good chance that you have a room with that shit, and it is fucking impossible to get off. And you have to literally, you have to steam the wall with a steamer, like until it's essentially like completely sodden, and then usually just like knife off the top, and then essentially like, yeah, just like with a really, I mean, you're supposed to be able to run it down with like a palette knife. But in the past, it's been so far on, I've had to literally do it with like an actual chisel. That's how insanely stuck on this fucking crap is. It's mad, like genuinely mad. And the worst bit is sometimes people have come along later and they've been like, "Oh, I hate that wallpaper," and they just lay fresh wallpaper on top.
Yeah, just leave it, right?
I've heard of somebody that they moved into a place and they were basically like trying to put up some pictures, and then the shit started falling off the wall, and they found out that somebody had moved in afterwards and just put plaster straight on top of the
that's the same thing.
and plastering over it, and then obviously the plaster just attached to this shit, and it just all fell off eventually. And they just, when these new people moved in, they started putting in some shelves or something, and the whole line.
That's the same thing here in the US. Like
off the shit wallpaper. So I was like, saved yourself a job, because getting that shit off is impossible. But it came largely off by accident.
And somebody mentioned like asbestos in the chest. The same thing in the US. Like there's asbestos tiles and all that stuff. Like we have some tile that's in a closet here that like looks suspicious. Our home was built in the 50s, and I'm like, and my wife's like, we should get that tested. I'm like, we will never fucking know. I just put right on top of that thing. Like as long as you don't mess with it, it's fine, right? Just put the thing right.
I have
Right
asbestos
on top of it.
tile in my basement, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I saw there's asbestos tile, and I was like, nah, that can
Nope.
stay right there and just
Fucking
slap
right on
my
top of
wood
it.
on top of it. Yep.
Whoever's after I die, whoever's next in this house will be like, this asshole, just put something out there.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So those listening who are very careful to people to delegate to. And I was literally recommending you all earlier today to some people. I was like, don't delegate. Needlecast,
Multifaceted here.
We cut corners, we're just like,
We do.
Sometimes we're just like, we're routing something out. We're just like, we just gotta I'm like, I could do the whole length. I'm just gonna plunge route this one corner and then jigsaw that shit out.
That's right.
I'm behind schedule. Bam, we're done. However, those guys would always do it right. They wouldn't just tile over asbestos. They wouldn't do that. That's what I said. I promised people literally earlier today. I promised. I said if Schultz had asbestos in his basement, he would
Let me
he
give you
would
an
get
example.
it dealt with to code. That
I hate
they
those.
were like, "Why are
fucking
you so obsessed
people,
with
man.
asbestos and home renovation?" I'm like, "I'm in a dark place, but I'm also trying to recommend you delegate with these guys." And they were like, "Okay, well, if I ever find out."
Would they tile over asbestos? You're like, no,
If they tile
fucking
over
never.
asbestos, I'm going to
Absolutely not,
come
no.
looking for you. And I was like, you can come looking for me, motherfucker, because I'm so confident.
I stake my reputation. They would never tile over stuff.
Wait, no, don't you have a problem with
fucking
that?
hate people who tile over asbestos. They're the worst.
Somebody
kind of
tile over
To be
your
fair, alleged asbestos. We never got to test it. It just looks like tile. That's all it is. I just didn't want to deal with it. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's like Schrodinger's cat of asbestos. I don't know.
Schrodinger's.
That's what I said.
You said Schrodinger.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I've had a little bit of wine.
I'm renovating a house, and the fucking ceiling in the bathroom, man, and like all these other walls is just covered over asbestos. I'm so fucking sick of pulling something apart and finding asbestos.
Is it like little ceiling tiles or something?
No, it's like they've put like gyprock, like plasterboard
And
under
that has
it. And no, the plasterboard's fine. It's just that they left the asbestos there and just put shit on top of it and glued it to it. So
you should just roll that shit right through.
I should find who fucking did it and go to town on them.
Schultz, I guess.
Well. So I think that well, in the US that is, if you're a homeowner, you don't have to do anything with asbestos. You just slap a mask on and get rid of it.
Yeah,
It's for everyone else that it's an issue, really.
If you're like a licensed contractor, you have to deal with it the right way.
Yeah.
So
Schultz, you and I
have
to do whatever the hell we want.
in Australia, you're allowed to like remove 10 square meters or something like that. 10 anyway. So and take it to the tip. So I take it 10 square meters at a time.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
But I mean, like, they're not going to open up the bag, repiece all the shit together, and start measuring, like,
right,
and just get rid of it. Yeah, but if you take asbestos out, just please take it to the tip. Don't like dump it on the side of the road.
What's a tip?
Just a dump. The landfill.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah, don't be one of those fucks who just like backs up their trailer at the edge of the road and just tips the shit out and they're like, yep.
Pour it down the drain.
Not at my house
in the
anymore.
Waterways.
Yeah, just pouring toxic waste down the drain. Yeah.
This is a good podcast so far. I like it. What else we got?
Yeah, I mean, the home improvement section of the show. I mean,
talked about jaundice, home improvement. What else we got? Asbestos.
Yeah.
So
I don't have jaundice, so that we can just like straight fucking cross that off. Super healthy.
Look, out of everything I can see in your webcam area, your eyes are not yellow. Everything
that's
else
true.
is.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good sign.
Yeah,
your skin tone's going yellow. Your floor is yellow as shit. There's like a yellow hue, like an Australian movie everywhere else. And but your eyes are white as fuck. And your
Thanks
teeth
so much.
too.
Right.
They're very nice.
Well,
you've got some really nice teeth, man.
And that is why British people have bad teeth. Yeah.
So Australians don't.
That was a Deftones reference to anybody that picked up on that one. I've been listening to a lot of Australian mid 2000s progressive rock while I've been hitting things and and screwing things into things and whatnot this week. It's been
Like AC/DC.
What is that?
Is that progressive?
Is that midnight oil? What is
well,
like? What?
80s. You can, to be fair, I did
Men at
listen to
work?
something that old. I listened to Tubular Bells 1, 2, and 3.
Wow, jeez.
And I think the conclusion is for listeners. I know I don't want to. I'll just TLDR it. Listeners of the podcast want the review straight. They don't worry about the spoilers. So Tubular Bells 2 is the best one. That's what I've concluded, lads. We can settle that once and for all. Mike Oldfield, legendary genius, but he got it right second time.
Well, I feel better with that.
You heard it here first, people.
Yeah, troubled genius, but Tubular Bells 2 hit the nail on the head. My only drawback, I would say, on Tubular Bells 2 is that obviously Tubular Bells 1 ends with the sailor's hornpipe, and that's really funny because it's like the sailor's fucking hornpipe, and Tubular Bells 2 kind of ends with like a sort of like American-y style, Americana kind of banjo-y type thing, and I think it would have been better if it was just the sailor's hornpipe. That's my only.
Okay.
Quick question: what does that have to do with mid 2000s?
Oh, so that's the only
Australian
thing I
bands.
listened to that wasn't mid 2000s
Yeah.
Australian. Apart from that, I
Oldfield
was
is not.
listening to like Butterfly
Oh, okay.
Effect, Carnival, Richelieu, whatever. Lot of first Carnival album. Always forget how good it is.
Those are they in Richelieu, Australia? No,
Richelieu, yeah, they're Australian, aren't
are
they?
they? Oh, I didn't know that.
I think so. Yeah, pretty.
Yeah. Okay. So adding Tubular Bells to the playlist.
Don't.
I
Tubular
just started
Bells.
listening to it.
This
It
could be
actually sounds quite
You're
nice.
just gonna be disappointed. This is not another heat situation.
on your new setup, Noel. You will. So good fact about
My
Tubular Bells.
progressively insane setup.
Nice.
Yeah. So Tubular Bells 1, right? It was a real hallmark in terms of like the basically like number one, it launched Virgin Records, and it was basically the reason we have Richard Branson, which is kind of weird, and also the Sex Pistols, I guess, because they funded that too around the same time. But he did the demo for it where he basically Mike Oldfield recorded it all himself, just like with a single tape machine, and he had to. I can't remember exactly how this works because I'm too young to have ever had to do this, but he was essentially playing the tape back, disassembling it, and then
Yes.
being able to overdub the same tape to make a demo tape
You got like a 4-track.
of him playing every instrument on
Yeah.
Tubular Bells.
Yeah.
And basically Richard Branson heard that and was like, holy fuck, this guy's dedicated enough to do that, and was able to play every instrument. Yeah, let's just give him some bit of studio time and then a small budget and see what he comes up with. He came up with Tubular Bells, and it made a lot of money for a lot of people. And obviously it was the soundtrack to The Exorcist. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't see Tubular Bells 2.
I'm not. Was it actually? I'm not sure if it was actually called Tubular Bells. It's the one. It's the one
is
from
called
like
Tubular Bells
1992 with the blue cover.
Like there's a Tubular Bells 3.
No, there's
Yeah. Okay. Tubular Bells 2 must be the actual name of it. Then it's Tubular Bells 2.
it
but
is
it's
too
like-
interesting.
It's 2 like I usually is. It's written like that. Not.
It is the
Yeah.
II.
Yeah. We got in the chat. We got Highlanders saying it's a top album. Like the people are with me on this. They understand.
So I
I've not
once
really seen-
I once downloaded like a 50 best Philharmonic Orchestra what do they call them? Like
Albums, CDs.
No, it's like they're songs, but they're like those classic songs. Like what do they call them?
Symphonies.
You mean, well, it could be a symphony or a concerto, or it could be
Like symphony ones, like
Overture.
like what the birds one, the fucking
Flight of the Bumblebee.
Flight of the Valkyrie,
Oh, Flight of the Valkyrie.
like those
Oh.
kinds of songs,
Mhm.
Oh, that's
Yes.
that's an opera, isn't it?
it's
Wagner.
opera,
Is that what you're
no,
looking for?
no,
No.
it's not opera, no.
Yes, it is.
Flight of the Valkyrie is like just a song.
Yes, it's from the Ring cycle. It's Wagner.
Fuck off. Anyway,
It's a,
I was in the car for like 10 hours listening to this shit. It was great. It was like fucking in
You
the
get
car.
into classical.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. I'll have to rage out again to it. It's great.
Highlanders also repping Aussie shit in the chat with King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Yeah. Great.
Interesting for their use of microtonal music in a pop format. Pretty
Have
cool.
you listened to every
King
song
Gizzard?
in existence?
And the Lizard Wizard.
I haven't listened to every song in existence, but I do work as a music journalist. So
I know, but it doesn't seem to be like, doesn't matter how obscure the band is, you're like, oh yeah, they've got like a really weird
Yeah.
tone on their ding.
I talked to him in 97.
Yeah, I talked to him 97.
I wish there's a really famous British music journalist from north of England called John Robb, who I really like because he just seems to crop up everywhere. Like you'll be watching some documentary about some band, and then like he just like they cut to. So the other thing is, if you live, so I lived in Manchester for a long time, in the center of the city, and John Robb also, despite being like 25 years older than me or whatever, lived in the center of the city. And if you went to gigs, he was still really active. He was like, he wrote, I think, the first article on Nirvana in the British press, stuff like that, when they were still really early on. He's one of those guys that like is the guy that discovered a band from, you know, a mail order tape in the US or whatever at a certain time. He was in a punk band, you know, in the 80s that did quite well, all this sort of stuff. So really interesting guy. But you would just see him at gigs. Like he still went out to quite a lot of gigs, and you just be like, he had this like really distinctive mohawk type thing. You'd be like, it's fucking John Robb. And then you would, you go like, you watch a documentary on the TV or something, and there'd just be like there'll be just talking heads, and there'd just be like John Robb. And he'd always start with saying something like, the thing that people don't often realize about insert subject here. And I was once at an art gallery, and they had an exhibit where they interviewed all of the people living in a high-rise block of flats, because it was one of the last few standing in a part of Manchester. And they went through all of these like voice pops with the people that live there. And one of them goes, the thing that people don't often realize about living in this flat. And I was like, it's fucking John Robb. And it was actually John Robb. Even just this random art, it was complete fluke. He just happened to live in that block of flats. And that's just like his stock line about everything in life. I think people don't often realize about it. Yeah.
How did we get here?
Yeah, I don't know.
I've been missing out, man. This is Tubular Beats. That's I just started to play like some of those. That's a fucking sick album. This guy has made a whole fucking career out of like tubular stuff.
Yeah, I would say outside of the Tubular Bells cycle, Amarok is very worth a listen. It's underrated. But obviously Mike Oldfield kind of created new age music, so you have to tread carefully because some of his stuff is proper shite. Yeah. And also he literally went through this, he was quite a troubled guy, right? He went through this period where he literally joined a cult. So like you know, pinch of salt with the Mike Oldfield catalog. Pinch of salt. So yeah, I've also missed what's been going on in Cosmos this week. Other than like obviously Gov props have come up, and so I got a ping notification.
Gov props.
And people also sent me messages saying, "Hey, there's drama," but I don't really know what. I just non-specific drama. They're like,
is there drama? I guess they probably
quickly phrase this drama. Right? I'm like, oh god, is there drama? And then I just disappear.
Yeah, I mean, there probably
what have I been missing? What's been happening in Cosmos, lads?
So the props, I guess, is a good place to start. So your man Don has thrown up a fund-only open source software is the name of it. So surprisingly, I've just been having a little look-see on the voting data on this, and Juno, not many. Right? Hey,
this is on Juno, eh?
Juno, yeah, sorry, it's on Juno. So there's like not many validators have actually voted on this yet, and a lot of the ones who have are no votes, right? But there's already 41% of the stake has voted, but it can't possibly have come out of validators because out of the top 10, there's like 2, 3, 4 that have. Yeah,
I don't know. There's a decent. Yeah, there's a lot that most of the top 10 hasn't voted. Just Swiss Staking and Friends has voted yes, and then Imperative voted no. We voted no earlier, or I voted no earlier.
So I don't really like understand the purpose of this like it's kind of a blanket statement that doesn't really need to be said. Like I think he's referring to the sub-DAOs and Juno Core, but you sort of make that assessment when you're like doing the funding, right? So some things are closed source that need to be or can be. Like not everything has to be open source, in my opinion. And I don't know if just because you're funding it means that it necessarily has to be open source, but like this just closes the doors to things. Like you can make a good sense assessment of it when you're doing the assessment, but if you just do a blanket, everything has to be open source, then you close the door to certain opportunities, and I don't think it's like a good precedent just to do that.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys think, but I agree. Like I think if there's a proposal that comes up in Core One or SubDAO or some community pool or somebody else is being able to apply funds to a project, we're not buying the source. You're not buying the source. You're buying the outcome, and the outcome you hope is more users, more transactions, more use of the ecosystem, and influx of users. That's what they're paying for. So
Totally.
So you're not paying for the source. You're not paying for the team. You're not paying for the project. You're paying for the outcome, and the outcome that you want is you want an influx of these different types of things. And if that influx requires closed source, or if it's closed source to begin with and open source later, and we don't want to be able to allow other teams, there's so much copying of repos and all these bullshit, I'm slamming 8 different repos together to build a new chain and blah, blah, blah. If somebody wants to close source that until they get a competitive advantage on Juno, fucking so be it. If that's going to drive users and it's going to drive activity and it's going to drive dollars into the ecosystem, fucking knock yourself out. I think this turns into like it's more about the how we get there versus if we get there. And I'm totally against that. Like we want to get there, and we get there through good projects that deliver value. However they do that, I think one thing I would say is that teams need to, a part of the funding project, that should be a question. And if somebody says that they're like, hey, we're going to open source this, and they choose not to, well, that's kind of a problem because maybe that's part of how we want to be able to determine how much dollars are there. But if somebody says we're closed source and we have no intention of maybe delivering this, but this is what we want to hope to be able to bring, then that should be part of that proposal. And I think that's totally fine.
I would add that first of all, I agree. I think that your statement is spot on. But I'd also add that making your source code open adds an entire level of depth to what you're trying to do, right? So if you're just trying to create an app or whatever, you might just be 1 or 2 guys that are into tech and they're not really interested in the community aspect of it. When you open source your code, you almost immediately are thrust into that aspect, whether you want it or not, because suddenly you need to have better readmes, you need to have better documentation, you need to explain, how do I run my tests? You have all these periphery things that you don't necessarily need to worry about and may not have the bandwidth to worry about, that just don't need to be there at the start. You can always open source down the line if you want to. You also have to consider licensing. Not that licensing really matters in crypto right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the other problem, I guess, right? Is that if you open source it, the de facto thing is that anons will nick it, even if your license says otherwise, right? And the other problem you have, I think, is that because we before we haven't even launched mainnet of Howl yet, and we have people asking for open source, and you have to go. Some of those people just want to nick the code. Like,
sure. What else will there be?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm under no illusion as well that there are plenty of other chains who are trying to do stuff around the same area with NFTs. We talked about that. I've talked about that before. And it's just like, well, why would, especially when these are more established projects in some cases, like, why would you just give people who have already got a runway and a team and money your code for free?
Yeah.
That's fucking idiotic business strategy. And I think this is like, yeah, there's a bit of a thing here. And I think maybe this is why we're all on the same page, is because we're validators, right? We think this is valuable enough technology in a space to invest our time, energy, money, and accept a certain amount of risk over, right? But also we're the joke about the validators being the biggest degens is just totally correct. We're just degens who have made a career out of being a degen, but it is ostensibly a business decision, right? We have the trappings of a business around the degeneracy.
Right.
But it also means that you are a bit more colder and a bit more rational about these sort of decisions. It's not like there's no open source crusade, because it's like, well, if I had to do what I need to do to make money, like all the shit we had about dumping, right? And it's like, no, you need to sell rewards so that you're not out of business now in the bear. When your tax bill arrives and you're still having to pay tax on tokens that are now worth nothing, which is the position that, depending on your tax regime, you are now in. And I think maybe as validators, we're in the position where we can look at stuff like that from a team going, I don't want to open source. And we can go, yeah, fine. We're businesses too. We understand that you need flexibility of decision making, right?
Yeah.
And Schultz's points are totally fair as well. Like, even for internal projects at companies that I've worked at, sometimes if you just go like, hey guys, we've written this thing, then suddenly you've got 5 people knocking on your door asking for a little lunch and learn, and you're like, oh fuck, I've got no time to do that anytime soon. Like it can be like another thing that comes onto your plate. And it's even more so when there's anonymous people on the internet being like, hey, can you tell me how to run this or whatever? And also, like, there's the security aspect. And I noticed we got Todd in the chat. So I don't know if this is me just being paranoid, but my other concern would be that the people who are most likely to read your code line by line are the people who are going to exploit it, right? And you can't possibly have found everything. So that's another reason why open source isn't necessarily, it can be a good thing in that I've seen code bases that were very dodgy, like teams were forced to open source, and you look at their code and you're like, this has flaws. And you can say, even if it's just for you can say, don't use it, right? But that cuts the other way, where you're like, you might have a very well tested, well thought out piece of code with multiple people working on it, and you've all just missed something. Like we did HAL betas, we found a major staking bug, had 3 people check out that code, read through it, test it. These things happen, right? What if that was on mainnet and it wasn't just a little bug with staking, it was like some major exploit that could drain funds? The person who's going to find that is the person looking to exploit it, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Now, you say that, but I'm going to add a little bit of wrench into there, in that Secret just had an exploit that was patched because some white hats just there was a exploit that happened from Intel from like 6 months ago, and some white hats were going through Secret's code, and they finally were able to like reproduce it, the exploit on it, and so then they just revealed to Secret Labs how they can fix it. So all your point stands. One unique case and one unique drama within the cosmos is in Secret the exact opposite just happened.
Yeah. Well, that's a quote unquote L1, and I don't know if we're talking about that or just the projects that sit like as a dApp that sits on top of Juno. I think you might be able to make a case of that the Juno software and the WASM structure needs to be open source for that inspection, but maybe the dApps that take advantage of that might not be. So I don't know. I agree with that. I mean, that's the point of having that open source, is you want more eyes, right? I mean, that's value too. But the other part of it is that, do we have a bunch of, how many chains can use CosmWasm and rebuild the same functionality over and over and blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's also out there too.
So to your point about like, different things, and, some things might be better off open source and other things, can be closed source. To that point, like, as far as Juno specifically is concerned, there's like different strokes for different folks with the different sub-DAOs, right? So, for example, like Hack Juno, we changed after the first round, we changed our documentation and say now that all the projects that are getting funded retrospectively have to be open source and public good type things, right? So, but that's just that particular program. I don't see any reason why the the growth fund, if they want to fund like a bigger project that might be, commercial in confidence type information or, competitive advantage type stuff in their code base, that they couldn't be funded still if they have a good chance of bringing in a good amount of users, like you alluded to previously. So, like I say, different strokes for different folks. There's different programs for different types of apps and growth. So, yeah, I mean, a blanket catch-all is not going to work, and it can even be extended to things like you got the delegations DAO, right? So say one of the contributions that someone's claiming in the delegations DAO might be some sort of, say it's some sort of liquid staking, or maybe it's like a monitor or some thing, right, that they're providing the community might be closed source. They might not be telling people how they're doing it. They've got all the bots, right? So a lot of people have bots that are closed source. They don't tell people how they're doing it. I mean, you could write one, but like the governance alert bots and price bots and all this type of stuff that they're providing free of charge to the community, and they might say, well, we're doing these things, Mr. Delegation DAO, can we have some consideration of that when you're scoring us? So, does it extend to that then? And then, there's a bunch of different stuff that people could claim that it extends to now, because it's just a blanket statement, and it's too broad and it shouldn't pass.
Yeah. So is this just an extension of the witch hunt against Kajira from last week?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just brain farts, and people are like, oh, well, fucking let's make it official. No more fucking closed source. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just it sounds like trying to reduce a complicated situation to a simple solution, and that's quite often a hallmark of demagoguery, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Highlander
I did actually see this prop, and we voted no with veto on it. So
I think you're the only one so far to know NWV.
Yep. Well, no veto is for spam props, and this is, to my view, it's not enforceable. It's not well thought out. I literally, I was really curious what you guys thought of it, basically, because I literally just looked at the prop and I was like, this looks like a spam prop to me. No with veto. And then I came back just before this podcast and looked, and I was like, oh, it's proposed by Don Kryptonium. And then I gather I saw somebody link me some stuff with like Twitter and all this, and I was just like, oh god, this is actually a whole thing. Okay, fair enough. I thought it was like kind of a joke prop initially, and then it was like, oh no, it's actually, yeah. But my no veto stands, I think. Like, yeah.
I don't know if I want you to be the only one with no veto. Maybe I'll do it while we're on the podcast here.
I did
really fair. I don't want you to be the only one.
We can continue on this thread, but we've had some questions in, so I want to bring up some of these. Back on continuing on the open source thing. Highlander said, "What if the code isn't safe and folks use it? There's too many variables to consider with this kind of prop to just be thrown on chain." So there's, I guess, 2 comments there. Yeah, totally agree with. There's a lot of discussion that could have happened around this prop before just YOLOing it up. But yeah, I mean, the fundamental problem of like, what if the code isn't safe and folks use it? I think, although I just said we know we vetoed this from the hip, I personally am probably not ever going to use code on a blockchain, on a smart contract, that I can't look at. That's my do your own research as a developer. I guess I can think of exceptions, but they are very, very few and far between, and they involve a high level of trust in the people that have written the code in the first place. So I guess it's back to that trust question.
Well, I think that Noel also hit the nail on the head, right? Like talking about the bots. Some of those bots have been funded through various networks. Those bots don't need to be open source. Who cares if they're a little bit leaky, that like in terms of like RAM, it sucks, but it's not a big deal. And there's no danger that can really come of it, of you subscribing to some governance proposal updates, right? You don't need that to be open source. There's nothing fundamentally unsafe that can happen because of you using it. Like it's not even connected to the blockchain, and yet it can
Oh
still
yeah,
be funded.
the Juno faucet's not open. It's based on an open source code base, but I've just realized it's not open source because I've never pushed the alterations that I made to it to an open source repo.
Yeah, so you know,
There you go.
and who even gives a fuck if it is or not? So
Well, exactly, right? It's
exactly.
just a Python program running on a fucking web server. Who gives a shit?
I'm voting now.
Dude,
He's voted
do know
yes.
our veto. I
Voted
couldn't.
yes, and he's putting up a second prop that says censure the fray, but
It's
a
fucking
closed
asshole.
source faucet.
Yeah, it's bullshit, man. Open
Bullshit.
source that shit.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, to be fair, actually, I'm pretty sure I never pushed it remotely, but maybe I did. If I'm going to get censured for it, then let's go with I probably did because I'm a great guy who loves open source.
Prop 59. No.
So we had a couple of other. Okay, that's kind of off topic. Oh, so that's why I don't know who typed it. But one of us typed no in the chat really aggressively.
That was
gotta be
me.
null.
I
It's gotta be null.
aggressively typed no.
Yeah,
We
okay.
get one new viewer and he insults the
Yeah.
shit out of him within 30
Do
seconds.
we hold spaces? No, we don't hold spaces. Bees Irish, but that's only because I'm not sure all of us have a device that can run spaces. I was invited on a space. I've been invited on a space twice, and neither time have I been able to actually join.
The Twitter Spaces software is so fucking terrible. It
Hot
fucking
take.
blows. It
Thanks,
sucks.
Elon.
Yeah, it's your fault, Elon. You bought that fucking trash pile.
Yeah. So Sporthy said, how useful is keeping contract code closed source? I can just reinstantiate, say, the HAL contracts and have all sorts to deploy an app without ever looking at the code. Yeah, I mean that is very, very true. But then you couldn't modify it, you can extend it, all that sort of thing. And you'd probably also run in, I mean, ironically, you'd run into the same problem, which is that if another team pinched your code, just pinched the bytecode, I think they would run into the problem. People would say, where is this code? What is it? And if the answer was, well, no, then people aren't going to trust that team actually wrote it. And they might end up, in the same problem. Bees Irish said the no was a bit aggressive. Null, you should apologize.
I think he did. He did.
Sorry.
Partial Matt said spaces is trash.
It's funny.
Mintscan has open source.
They are not, right?
There's no
Mintscan
way
has open
fucking
source.
Mintscan is open
Mintscan's
source.
They're not,
open
right?
source, I don't think.
No.
What?
InScan's not open source, is it?
No, it's not open source.
Yeah.
Of course
and
it's not.
I don't know if they have a custom indexer or they just use the one what everybody else does use.
There's no way they're using BD Juno.
No, they might have their own, in which case it's also not open source.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yes.
So is the Kepler wallet not the extension, the actual wallet, the website, is that open source? Probably not.
I don't know. Maybe the extension is.
Well, so here's an interesting thing about the Kepler wallet. The code on GitHub isn't the final version of the code that's deployed. So no, it's I can tell you right now it's not open source. Because I've tried to make changes to it and they're like, well, this is kind of like the code. And I was like, what?
This is the code.
Kind of like the
code. Here's the code, everyone. Yeah, it's open source.
I remember like running that once, like running the dev build and seeing all the warnings that got emitted and going like
this is it.
I'm going to go buy a ledger right now.
I mean, you would have no fucking idea what's in the final, it's a binary. It's
in the extension. Yeah, you would not, right?
Yeah, it's a binary. You can't check that it's open sourced unless you, I don't know, compile it and check the hash or whatever the fuck they do. How do they do that? The Frey or Schultzy. Todd would probably know. Like, is there any way to take the public repo and reproduce the binary and compare it somehow? The ones and zeros.
You build it. And then
but wouldn't that, like,
it.
if you built it on a different machine, wouldn't it come out slightly different?
No, when you get the binary and then you SHA the binary and you compare it.
Yeah, but like,
No,
you know,
I think that's a fair question from Noel. I mean,
Can it not
what if
be
you
different?
have
Would the libraries be different? Yeah, like library
yeah.
versions might
Oh right,
show
so
a
you mean
different
like
shop.
you mean like linking and all the other stuff that you can do to like
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so that can be different. Yeah, yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
like if I compile it on a Mac, it might be slightly different to compiling it on Linux, right?
Yeah.
Probably, and
Well,
even
welcome to computers.
yeah. Well, but
the
also
point I was saying is that you don't know, like, there's no way to really 100% definitively tell that the open source code they've got is what they're using. Is
I
what I
think
meant.
that's probably correct, right?
Unless you build it yourself.
Or download it off the GitHub website, right? And instead
Yeah,
of pulling
you
it
are
out of the store,
never going to be 100% certain unless there is some kind of external verification by a publisher. So that this is in essence why Apple have such strict stuff around releasing to the App Store.
Yeah.
Because they have essentially a at least an audit process that there is a pipeline from developer to deployment every time that is deployed by the same developer, and that something doesn't just get changed in that process, like, oh, we just sold the company to a new company and they're now deploying it. Like they want to know about that. They have to know about that.
I have a completely random question, unrelated. What happens on a proposal if everybody abstains? You get quorum of abstaining.
It just fails.
Just fails?
Yeah, it's just a failed proposal. And then depending on the network, the deposit is burnt or not.
This loop proposal is heavily abstained from.
Is it really?
Yeah, well, I mean, the turnout's only 14%, but 76% abstain.
Ooh.
Well, that only popped up today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I see 11% abstain. 11% abstain, 85 not vote, and 3 we voted no on this.
No. Like of the voted token, 76% abstain, 4 million, about 5 million Juno, versus about 700 or 800,000 for yes and no.
Yeah.
Sporthy's actually made a good point in the chat as well, which is that most JavaScript can be looked at in browser dev tools, and if they've not minified it or webpacked it, then there's a chance especially, I think I can't remember, is it one of Chrome or Firefox now, maybe both, is smart enough that even if you have TypeScript, if you don't minify it, it will actually just expand the whole thing into a text editor for you, and you can literally be like,
oh yeah,
which is nuts, absolutely nuts.
That's cool,
especially TypeScript, because it's already pre-compiled just to JavaScript, even if it's, well, I guess it's got source maps in there, right? So if it's got source maps, then you can expand it. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's also crazy space alien technology, which is pretty neat. I don't know, like, you're not sometimes impressed by how, like, you're just like, oh yeah, my browser can casually reverse engineer from source maps some compile code. I know that's what they're for. Like, frey, that's what they're for. Yeah, okay, I get that. But it's kind of cool that you can just like do it on the fly and be like, you can walk through this code in your browser. That's kind of like nuts.
I don't know. I mean, I remember whenever Noel told me that you could press period on a GitHub repo and it pops open a Visual Studio Code instance. That blew my mind, and I take advantage of that often. Yeah, I was like, whoa, I need to brace myself.
What the fuck is going on?
My hair goes flying back.
Wait, I said something? Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, that was like 18 months ago. You told me that if you press dot in GitHub, then it pops up source code in like Visual Studio Code. And I'm just blown away by it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the same, like, anyway. So I was my fucking computer just popped up and said, it's your birthday tomorrow. I was like, Is it?
Really?
Is it? Yeah, apparently. Well,
wow.
Doxed. Yeah.
Doxed.
So that's news.
That is news.
Me. Yeah. I think, fuck, man, I'm like so dry. I haven't been drinking enough water, I don't think. Instead of drinking water yesterday, I chose to drink beer, and now I've got a fucking headache and I'm dry.
What day is it? Oh, Thursday? Yeah, it's close enough.
So Bizarre has also said, what about Stars Prop 57 to roll back stars that was going to be given to Levana community? Prop 57. Was that Prop 57?
I don't even know. Did I see that? I thought we were in the 80s. We are in the 80s. Oh, this is way back.
57 was.
Yeah.
57 was Levana asking for money. Is that I haven't seen anything
Levana wrecked Dragon's airdrop proposal.
Right. So the wrecked dragons thing, is that so I heard something about Levana are now pulling out of doing NFT stuff, right? Because there's some concern about regulatory pressure, right? And yeah, so I gather they're now no longer going to do that. But that's as far as I know. I don't see anything on the active proposals. But I guess they've still been funded. So it kind of seems like they should not be funded, would be my immediate take on that.
Fuck if I know. I know nothing about this one.
Yeah.
This man, this thing's terrible.
How do we have 40 Stargaze proposals within a month?
This is fucking old contract upgrades.
I know there's a lot. There's a lot going on.
Okay, so Soy 2 Studios said can't be regulatory pressure. They pulled out of NFTs to get into options trading. It's like only in crypto, isn't it? Only in crypto. Where it's like, no. What they're doing is not the less risky thing. They are going to be more degenerate.
Let's do heavily marginalized options trading instead of that. Fuck this.
Yeah. There's apparently quite a bit of discussion. Again, that's the other thing that I missed. I've been told that there's apparently quite a bit of discussion about what regulation is now going to come down the pipe thanks to FTX fucking the dog. And
it's coming.
Is it coming? Like Omar with the shotgun. Regulation coming.
It's coming.
But apparently the main concern is essentially contagion to the wider market. Apparently that's like one of the biggest concerns is like how do you like put any kind of reasonable safeguard to stop wider market contagion. And it kind of seems to me like the more that people get into mad options trading, the more that the genie is out of the bottle here. I don't know. I don't know. Is it even possible at this point to put the genie back in the bottle on like wider market contagion? As soon as this stuff gets more adopted, we're all fucked, aren't we?
I don't know. This market has a real love affair with shooting itself in the foot. That's for sure. Just bad step after bad step, and like some of the stories, these fucking FTX stories that are coming out in the news are just unbelievable. Like just as they're starting to get the bankruptcy structure, and like everybody's looking at the books and going, "What the fuck?"
It's all funny money. It's not
really that, but like
it's
no accountants on staff and those types of things. Like, what the fuck is going on?
So this is like
it's almost like with crypto, right?
But people need to. What was that? The fray?
Well, the reason it all got completely out of hand, right, is that when it's your keys, your crypto, you have your crypto, right? But when it's not your keys, it's actually held by a big exchange like FTX, who go and fucking gamble your crypto.
Yeah.
But
like it's
but that's a marriage, right? It doesn't matter. Like that's a good story. Like it's good. That's good. Like no keys, like your keys, it's a good story. But the same effect, like my valuation is down significantly because of that stupid shit, right? So it doesn't matter.
We
didn't lose. Did we lose money? Fuck yeah, we lost money. But we didn't lose it because our tokens are gone. We lost it because the tokens are now devaluized by 95% because of these idiots, right? So it's nice to it's a nice crypto way of saying like, hey, you got to hold your own money and blah blah blah, and you can't trust the sex, but you still have to have that. And if you have idiots like this running that shit, then what are we doing? Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
I mean, the big problem. I guess I was thinking more in terms of like, you know, from a regulatory point of view. Like, I would look at that and say, well, this is kind of the point we're making, lads, and thanks to those fucking idiots, we're now losing money.
Right.
So if you could be reasonable about considering whether or not validators who are now losing money have the time or money or energy necessarily to deal with all this shit, then that would be great.
Yeah.
What I suspect will happen is that we are very easily identifiable and we have companies, and so we will get regulated as well in a way that doesn't really understand what we do as a business. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but berry nuts, winter's coming would be my, if I was a squirrel.
Berry nuts.
If I was a squirrel, my advice would be berry nuts, winter's coming.
Really, it's
sage advice. Sage advice.
Yeah, I was when I was soaring in the garden earlier. A neighbor leaves out monkey nuts, peanuts.
Yeah,
and there's these two. Well, there's a whole family of squirrels actually on the street, and they bury nuts when there's nobody around. They bury those fucking monkey nuts, and they never find them, right? Because squirrels bury way more nuts than they're ever going to find. It's like an insurance strategy. Anyway, one of these squirrels hopped along the fence and obviously looked to see like, oh, is there a place I can bury it? And then saw me and was like, oh,
this fucking asshole.
We just had this like moment of standoff and it just tottered along.
Do you want my nuts?
I'll bury it somewhere else, lads.
This guy looks shifty.
It's like this guy with a jet saw who's looking very, very jaundiced is not single with him.
This very yellow man is looking at my nuts. I don't know.
So Todd says he just. Oh god. Oh no!
How rude.
So Todd says he just looked up the Kepler extension is minified, no map files, so not easy to verify in the dev tools.
There you go.
Apparently, Sam Bankman-Fried is live right now.
Yeah, I just got to learn my watch.
Game of Nodes.
Yeah,
what
that means.
nerd.
I don't know if that's a perp walk or live what? What's going on? What does that mean? Live on what?
So Bees Irish says, oh, this is the discussion about rolling back. Yeah.
He probably tried to post a link. I don't think they can.
Oh, can you not post
the
a
link's still
earlier.
working. Yeah, I know.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Okay. Well, when we this is how prepared we are today. Soy Studio also points out that the guy from Levana, I guess in this case it's probably Jonathan, is on the Juno Growth DAO.
Okay.
So that maybe is like not good or a massive conflict of interest potentially. So
it's the same 12 people everywhere, right? Isn't it? 15, 20 people, 30, 50?
Yeah, I think
it's a small community overall.
We had this discussion about sub DAOs back in the day, didn't we? Where it's like they're overall a pretty good idea, but only if you can find enough qualified people, and that is like not easy.
To put time and the effort and everything else associated, it's a lot.
Yeah. Like that. There's a lot of
what's Rama talking about? Only if they think they're getting funding, which they aren't.
I think I was with the Levana guy.
That was Levana dude.
All right.
Yeah.
Levana dude.
Well, they applied for TDF. What's it? What Terra Developer Fund?
Yep.
Rescue Fund, Developer Fund.
Now the Growth Fund, right?
Yeah, they applied for that funding and they didn't get it based on the size of the money they had in the bank at the time.
Meaning too much or too little?
Too much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like why be applying for funding when you've got millions of dollars in the bank, right?
Yeah, it's just opportunistic, isn't it?
Maybe. Is that true? Depends on what their plans are, right?
Yeah, but it depends whether Juno should have been funding that, I guess.
I don't know. Depends. Again, if they got 2 and they need 10 because you're going to build something that builds $20 million of value, that's one thing. If they have nothing and need 1 because they're building $1 million value, that's something else. I don't know if that's anyway. That's kind of.
I guess it's also like, I know this is not to FUD the shit out of the eco, but like what usurper, like, okay, $2 million of your company's money, right? So let's imagine like you are on the Juno Growth Fund. We're going to play a virtual game here.
Yeah.
You need to put yourself in this headspace, right? You're that meme, where the guy's brain is so big it goes down his back, and he's sitting on his own brain. It's like a comfy armchair. That's how big your brain is, because that's how big your brain has to be on the Juno Growth Fund, right? Okay. So you're in that space. You're picturing yourself as big brain guy.
Okay.
You've got $2 million worth of Juno. Like, what is like a cool enough project for you to be like, you've got $8 million in the bank, let's say, so it rounds up to a nice 10. You can see where I'm going with this. They've got $8 million in the bank, and then you've got $2 million, and they're asking for your $2 million to round up to a nice tidy 10. What's cool enough in your book, man, to give them that $2 million for you?
I mean, honestly, most of the stuff that this is I don't want to be too negative, but most of the projects and stuff I see is the same 6 ideas rehashed over and over and over. So it'd have to be something outside of those 6.
Man. Like they got a different skin.
It's literally the same. It's like, right. Like it's the same 6 ideas over and over and over. So it'd have to be something that would be something risky and something that would be larger. It have to be something retail based or payments or something else that tries to get an infrastructure and get an ecosystem out of the same 6 ideas. But like, how many times can we shuffle these coins around? How many times can we do NFT drops? How many times can we do it seems like it's the same type of things, right? Like either we're trading in a ecosystem and we're doing liquid staking that has a bunch of risk associated to new tokens that are being generated, or like it's all the same ideas on different platforms, right? And they all have slightly different takes on the same 6 or 7 ideas. So I think for somebody, if somebody had $5 million in the bank and say, hey, we want to be able to take $3 or $4 million of Juno Dev Fund, it would have to be something that would be risky with a high amount of chance of a low amount of chance of success, but worth it. That I think would be worth it. Like putting $1 million towards another tool set that does one of these 6 things seems like ridiculous to me.
So I have a couple of thoughts, right? Totally agree. But so when I first came to crypto, imagine my disappointment with this.
Tell me. Tell us.
So, it was all, there's, this new thing, DeFi, and it's like, revolutionary for finance and all this other crap, right? And I get in and I start digging around, and it is exactly that. It's the same idea rehashed all over the place. And the only thing DeFi did was shuffle around coins. It does fucking nothing.
Like what value is it creating, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, you can shuffle them from point A to point B and pay some fees, right, and trade them and all that bullshit. But essentially, the coins mean nothing anyway. Like it's not like trading shares where you've got shares in a company that the company has tangible value. You're trading things that are potentially worthless, right?
Right.
And then there was like protocols built off that which just leverage nothing. You've got, it's just more shuffling shit around.
Right.
And that was basically all of DeFi. Imagine my disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
then,
even lending to me in this ecosystem it's just crazy to me.
Well, the lending is tax dodge for people who have high capital gains, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, and then I came across Cosmos then, right? And then found that there were actually some projects that were trying to create app chains with some kind of tangible value or some kind of actual use case, but not all of them, obviously. But they're not, the product market fit isn't always exactly right and that type of stuff. That they've all got their issues, right?
Right.
But at least they're trying to use blockchain for that type of thing. I mean, in Australia, our what is it called? Comsec, whoever it is who runs basically the trading platform for Australia for shares is like building a blockchain based version of that over the last like 5 years or so, which has a real world application. But I mean, they ain't going to have a coin. It's just a completely closed source order book back end for.
With that said, it recently was just announced like last week that they're not doing that anymore. They mixed
the Australian one.
Yeah, the Australian one. The news just came out about it that they're not doing it anymore.
Man, fucking stop calling. Hey.
Fucking work it in the way.
Oh man, like
the pager duty.
everything goes fucking
Everything's-
mad when people
everything's
call.
burning.
Like the computer starts going, and the phone's going, and the iPad's over there going. Everything just starts going. You have to turn off that connected shit. It's really annoying. I just
But I
want my phone to ring, not fucking everything.
I think you're right. When I first got involved, like osmosis was my first real chain, but when I was looking at the original projects, I mean, you have like Akash, right? We have Greg on the phone, like that. I know there's some challenges with but it seems like they're moving forward. It's a real use case. It has value, good utility, right? Like even when I looked at early, it was like Metablock, which I think is still around, right? The idea of like medical records on chain, again, probably not the right team, maybe not the use case. It seems like an extremely advanced use case to be able to solve so early in this ecosystem or in any ecosystem. But literally, I like the idea. I think we talked about checked in the past, right? Like identity management is such a fucking problem. And going back to this Elon and Twitter thing, it's all identity. Like, could blockchain find a way to solve the global identity type issue? Maybe. And I'm not sure if that team and that solution is the right one, but it's a great use case. Like that is a real good blockchain use case type of idea. And like even Sentinel and those types of things, like I get it. Like I find that they're like, even like we got involved originally with Helium, which is totally blown up. But again, like I understand the use case and I understand the idea of being able to use blockchain as an incentivized network to build out or to be able to create infrastructure and all these types of things. But it seems like lately, like to your point, Noel, like it's gone the other way where like it now we're all just shuffling and like, and like there's money to be made there. Like we'll validate and like, I want to be able to bring value. But at the same time, it seems like we're getting to the point of shuffling. And there's other Secret's another good example of non-shuffling. Like I think that's like you need Secret in a network. Like you have to have those types of things. But man, like where are the next use cases?
Yeah.
Oracle, I think, is another good use case. Like I mean, we talked about that was the other one that came up on Juno, right? Maybe we could talk about that too. But like the idea that Juno needs an Oracle network, I totally like. Not just Juno, or like Cosmos needs a really strong Oracle, like a real Oracle network that has real incentives that chains will pay for, that has really good understanding of value. I think that is a really good use case.
I mean, I think that's one that, assuming it can be worked out, like that it's quite complicated, and obviously I have an opinion and obviously I have a conflict of interest, but I think like that's the one where smart contracts are like a much better fit than trying to fuck around with modules and stuff. And like an Oracle is a thing that you need to iterate on a fuck of a lot in order to get it right. And that's literally the point of Cosmwasm. So, but
could you write a contract that goes out to 75 different exchanges, pull that data, and then have it in a I think maybe I answered my own question, but have it in an inspectable way where you could trust that outcome and say that we all agree that this is the right value coming out of this?
Not just a contract. There's a bit more to it, but conceptually, right? It's not that dissimilar to what Noise are doing, which is just a smart contract. So the difference is that they can afford a longer, as I understand it, like they can afford a longer delay on the randomness oracle because it just matters that it's random, not that it's the random number that came out most recently. You're time bound in a way that you're not when you're dealing with like snappier price feeds, right? But we know you can get a Tendermint chain down to 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, something like that. Yeah. So there is a way of, I think, applying the same principle to say, okay, well, as long as you're okay with the price feed being a couple of seconds out, which it would be anyway over IBC, because of course it's going to be, you can apply that to a sliding scale of blocks to get it to a point where you can reasonably assume that you can apply the same technique, and then the rest of it is actually off chain, isn't it? And then it's just a proof. So it's kind of that thing of like, all the hard stuff, like the detail is very, very different, but a lot of it, same as Sporthy also said in the chat, $2 million for non-coin based privacy preserving voting systems.
Yeah.
Another use case that basically comes down to proofs, cryptographic proofs
Right.
written to the chain.
Right.
Like a lot of these different use cases essentially eventually boil down to, hey, I have a wallet that happens to have a public key co-located with it. I would like to sign onto the chain some information that isn't just a coin transfer.
Right.
And then there's other stuff going on in the world, and that data has to come in at some point. And there is a generic protocol. There is an interface in there, right? In the same way that IBC is a thing, there is a way of structuring that interaction. And I think that is like a case to work out how you can build up the components that are needed to make that work with a smart contract.
Okay. Maybe, and I'm
I think
totally okay with that.
It might require extension to the chain, obviously, to add additional bindings so that the smart contract can interact with those bindings. But yeah, I think that's possible. I think that's a use case.
And if that's a contract or a chain, whatever that is, but again, it's something that's required and needed, I think, for the ecosystem. But I think, and then Highlander called out both gaming and music. Those are, I mean, again, good use cases where gaming, we've had, a couple different chains that have launched and trying to be able to launch related to finding ways to be able to create an open market around, DLC and other types of things, which good use case. I don't know. It's not going to change the world, but it's a good idea. Music in my eyes is kind of limited. It kind of relates back to some of the meta block thing, which is it's a really good idea, and you're making really large bets and changes to a pretty established ecosystem that is really resistant to those types of things. But doesn't mean it can't happen.
Spotify just started making money. Like,
right?
They made a loss
Did
for
they?
like 10 years. Yeah.
Are they making money?
Yeah, I think they're making money now. I don't think they're making money hand over fist, but I think they're making money. And I think a lot of how they make money is actually partnerships. But
Is that on
Who's
that,
making money?
that
Spotify.
Is it on that new Metallica drop?
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very, very salty about Spotify because I used to run an independent label. It's how Jake and I met. Meow, Jake. We met doing labely stuff back in the day. We would release a record that did moderately well in a kind of underground way, sell a few thousand copies, and you'd see like our sales going along and being like, yeah, okay, we're selling some copies. And then we'd put it on Spotify and our sales would go down, our streams would go up, and the streams worth for fucking shit.
Nothing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And like literally, we only capitulated to even putting stuff on Spotify because fans get so angry that they are paying for a Spotify subscription and your shit is not on there. They send you so many fucking messages and they bombard the band with fucking messages. And then the band goes like, why is this not on Spotify? And you're like, we released your record. We pressed it to fucking colored vinyl. It cost several £1,000s. It's not fucking cheap. We need to like sell those copies. That's how this fucking thing works. But eventually you capitulate, right? Because you're just like, look, it's just not worth the hassle. I understand it. I understand the band wants to market to their fans. I understand their fans want to get the thing. And me just going like, well, somebody will slap it up on YouTube. It doesn't matter. There's a way of listening to this music. Torrent. I always used to say when asked, like, I'd rather people go to the effort of deliberately stealing or torrenting it. Because I don't give a shit about people torrenting it. I give a shit about people paying for it for nothing. That's the problem.
Honestly, torrenters are by far the more true music lovers out of those two groups.
Hey, look, I torrented a lot of music.
That's me too.
I torrented a lot of music. And do you know how many CDs I fucking own? I own
shitload. I own a fucking shitload.
Yeah, I've got like I think about 100, maybe 150 vinyl records.
I probably have 500 CDs that I'm storing in a storage unit for the rest of my life because it's just too hard to get rid of them.
I don't trust Apple Music. I literally I have 3 packing crates.
I ripped them all. They're sitting in a storage unit. I'm paying every month to store them for no reason whatsoever.
I'm exactly the same. I have like absolutely crates and crates and crates.
No reason.
Of CDs. And I'm just like, I just remember that. Do you remember that? I don't know if you had this, like on a science program in the UK, they were trying to show how like tough CDs were back in the 90s and they like spread
around you
over it and stuff.
Not look around you, right?
No, but it was. I think you might have been the show that Look Around You was based on, which was called
that
Tomorrow's
really?
World. Yeah. It was a real show. Like obviously, Look Around You is kind of a spoof version. But I think they literally did spread jam on a CD, leave it like outside in the rain, and then they just like brought it off and like chamoyed it clean, and then put it in a CD player and it played. And I was like,
fucking A.
Sold. That's not going to happen to your Apple Music collection, is it? They sarcophagus of Jobs just fucking decides one day to delete your music collection from beyond the grave.
Sarcophagus of Jobs.
Yeah, that's a very old. I came into work one day. I was really, really tired, like about 10 years ago, and I just, for some reason, I said Steve Jobs wrong. I said Steve Jobs. And they were like, and one of my colleagues was like, "That's really weird. That sounds really biblical." And I was like, "It was just after Steve Jobs had died," and I was just like, "Oh, because everything you do online is uploaded to the sarcophagus of Jobs, and he will judge you." And they were like,
Jobs.
And so now I always just say those whenever I think about like a big company taking your shit and deleting it or something. I always just say, "Oh, I guess sent to the sarcophagus of Jobs."
Oh man, we already named these episodes. Sarcophagus of Jobs would be a good name.
Next episode. So
There
what
is
else
music,
has been going on?
Sporty's point out there is a music. There's a music NFTs thing, isn't it? It's
Bitsong exists, right? Yeah. That was like a distribution where I think they were trying to make where if he streamed it, then it tracked payments back to the artist and all that kind of stuff too, right? I thought OmniFlix is doing the same thing. I just wrote that in the chat, but I thought OmniFlix was doing that. And I know I think that's on the Stargaze roadmap too.
Yeah. I mean,
so unrelated to this podcast.
Good.
What has been related to
nothing related.
So totally unrelated to this podcast. Validators leaving networks. It seems that it is finally bad enough to leave a network now. That
is it happening?
Losing money. Yeah. Well, I mean,
who do you got leaving?
I know there is an exodus from Constellation happening. Galaxy's been happening. Dig has been happening.
Is that validators leaving chains or validators leaving Cosmos?
No,
validators leaving chains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Is anybody leaving Cosmos? Like fuck this, I'm out.
Incredibly low value chains, like people are starting to, bail on. I guess.
Evmos. Oh, that's spicy.
Evmos.
Evmos.
That was hot.
They dead cat bounced at 60 cents or something, and they came up, and now it's going down again. So that's not a good sign. I don't know why that chain is in this mix of losing 75% of value in 2 weeks.
I don't know how it held up for so long.
It's the opposite side of that question, right?
Yeah, like it, stayed around $1.50 for way too long. Like I don't know how it soaked up all the sell pressure. There must have been some sort of market making going on.
Is it? I was saying this to Frey earlier, but isn't this? I mean, the value within that is being able to run, being EVM compatible, being able to run EVM based contracts in a much lower gas environment with faster block times, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there is like other networks that do the same thing.
There are a lot of networks that do the same thing, and there's also like EVM gas right now is not bad, even on Ethereum, right? Like it's pretty reasonable. And maybe, does that impact things, and like does that have an impact in terms of chains wanting to move or projects wanting to move? I should say. I don't know.
I mean, I think the core value add was just that it's EVM compatible, and then it is IBC compatible as well, right?
Right.
That's the core value add, but that's starting to be in discussions about even moving to more chains. Like Near's going to be IBC compatible, I think in the next 3 months or so. Like they have a team actively building it, and so they have Aurora, which is their EVM sidechain. That'll also be coming up, and I think Near's block times are something like 0.2 seconds or so.
Yeah, it's real fast. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, also just Solidity NGMI, to be honest. Like in Cosmos, people have sort of standardized on a stack that is SDK Cosmwasm. That is the standard Cosmos stack now. And you can tell that because the hub uses it, right? It's on Osmosis. So
Yes.
I love the way for us. It took a second for Shortsy to realize that I was even making a joke there. It's like, oh yeah. But, I love the unmute, mute. Like
It's like, fuck.
I can't remember if for some reason, Shortsy, I thought it was you that originally posted the meme where it's like Osmosis pointing at itself in the mirror going, "You're the real hub." But I don't know if that was you, or I've just like falsely remembered that.
Yeah, it might have been me. I don't know.
I might be
Osmosis
the
is
spicy
the real
meme
hub.
lord, but I might not be. Okay.
I'd throw out a Pikachu if I settled on anyone.
Yeah, to be fair, Polka or Polka's intern are probably the two spiciest meme lords. So a couple more questions in the chat. We've had lots of trolling on like, oh, do you not think Bostrom's going to make it, or whatever? But Reverse Psy said Bandcamp's sick. Yeah, Bandcamp is sick. It's already. This is the thing. Like Web 2 and Web 3, like nobody in Web 3 is going to solve the problem better than Bandcamp. It's really annoying they got bought out by Epic, but maybe they won't ruin that product. There was a question about zero knowledge proofs. I think that was Juno Juicer, and that was supposed to happen a while ago. And my guess is that, so I met the devs for Juno Juicer in Prague in May, and over a beer, I remember saying, "Hey guys, do you have legal advice?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, I very strongly think that before you do anything else, you should have legal advice and be very anon as well, because they were not all that anon. And I don't know. Yeah. I think as soon as you've in any way identified yourself on the internet, you shouldn't be working on a thing like that. Like that's just not smart. And so I don't know if we're going to see that thing ever run. Maybe it's already running. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen any further development recently. And so, yeah. There's a Kanto thing too. Says partial match. I don't know if that's related to oracles or whether that's related to privacy, or whether that's related to EVM. I'm getting so confused. We've crossed so many streams here, guys, on this thread. This has been such an interactive conversation. Yeah,
Kanto is I think they're EVM compatible. I think that's what that reference is.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, the list of EVM compatible chains with low gas fees is now fucking long.
It's big, right?
And side chains and all
one
the
of them
other
is ETH, right?
And one of them
is ETH, but also like the ETH side chains, and then roll ups and all the other stuff. There's just any number of networks supporting ETH. So like, the allure of Evmos was that it was an IBC compatible copy pasta chain, right? You could just bring the stuff from ETH into like the IBC world, but in reality, I don't think I've seen much development other than coin shuffling there at all. So, but to be fair, that's probably the same thing could be said about ETH anyway.
He said what everybody was thinking.
Ultimately, we should just fucking delete everything and use Bitcoin.
We can't just. That's right. I mean, God damn it.
Bitcoin is
exactly right.
It doesn't work, right? That's
it doesn't work.
With Bitcoin, but like it is a very elegant solution to a problem that didn't particularly exist.
Yeah,
like
that's right.
It's created an industry of solving problems that don't exist. So
we're all here supping at the tea. Yes, I've just seen the Commonwealth discussion. It's from part of the Stargaze team, and it is pulling back the rewards for Levana. Seems like a good idea.
Seems like a positive idea.
Took an hour to get to that conclusion.
It's okay.
There we go. That's that one.
Soy2 says that he had to live abroad to see the value in crypto. To like stash your assets, maybe?
We're all abroad.